Good morning, everybody. Welcome to a new semester and welcome to this specific unit, AVA20025, Human Factors and Performance in Aviation. And I realise at the moment you might be asking the question, what does that mean? All will become clear in just a minute. So my name is Matt Everton. I've been a lecturer here at Swinburne for 7 years now. Before that, obviously you might be able to tell from the accent, I was at Cranfield University in the UK. And I used to work for an airline just near London as well. So yeah, I don't intend to make these video briefings too formal. So I'm sat here with my breakfast in the morning, eating all bran, yay. Such is the diet post-COVID lockdown. And I'm sure at some stage my rather overweight cat, well, he's just down here, will make an appearance in the background as well. So he's on a diet as well, so he's not too happy. So we'll try and add some flavour to these videos because I don't want this unit to just be boring. And obviously we're not going to get a chance to connect every week like we normally would in a classroom environment. If you're in your second year, sadly your first year will have been spent entirely remotely as well. So hopefully this year is slightly more leaning towards a normal university experience. We'll have a little bit more time to get together. So I just want to run through a few of the basics about how the unit's going to run, what I expect you to do, what I don't expect you to do, and also what the sort of point of the subject matter is really, and why I'm teaching it, and why I think it's really interesting and really useful for you, how it relates to an aviation career. So on that point, we've got 12 weeks together. Well, 13 actually, because there's a week in the middle where we're going to have a break. And Canvas is your point of reference for everything. I'm still populating some of the pieces, bits and pieces, so it is a little bit dynamic at the moment, but the basics of the information are already there. Each week will be a different module, if you will. So each week will have a different subject matter focus. But it all relates to this thing called human factors. So what is human factors? If you are one of the flying students and you've already been through some of the CASTA examinations for your PPL and human factors, then you'll have already got a taste for what a specific part of human factors is. And the cockpit orientated, the flight crew orientated side of it tends to focus on the human body, how the human body performs in the environment, which is flight, so high altitudes, under G-force, under vibration, under high temperatures, under stress. And how that relates to the act of flying an aeroplane. There is a much broader remit of human factors though, and that's really where I come in. So I'm not a pilot. This is just private flying, but I'm not an airline pilot by any means. But I work very closely with airline pilots, and I have done throughout my career as a human factors researcher. But actually, I work with aviation training professionals too, cabin crew, air traffic controllers, aviation ground operations, people in the network operation control center. All of these areas of the industry have their own unique human factors challenges. It's not just about the interface of the pilot and the aeroplane, it's about the interface of people with other people and people with various systems that we work with in aviation. Those systems tend to be complicated and they tend to be quite high tech and they tend to be full of risk. So the reason human factors comes to the front in aviation is really because of that safety risk and high tempo of operations, the speed of operations. Why? Because humans aren't perfect, and we'll learn that throughout the course in quite a few examples, but humans make errors and we expect them to make errors. They're also incredibly flexible and they work in clever ways that we can't yet design machines to work. So we want humans in the system. We want humans managing our air traffic systems. We want humans making decisions over how our network works. And we want humans working together to resolve problems. But at the same time, we understand that they're going to make errors sometimes in those systems, especially when there's a lot of pressure on them, when there is a really high risk of, if you do the wrong thing, the outcome could be very bad. And we need to, in certain aspects of life, we can tolerate that. And the classic example is when we're designing a door, a push-pull door. You might have come across the example where you go to open a door and it's got a pull handle on it, so you pull it and it's actually a push door. Now that I could say is a bad piece of design and a system that causes a human to make an error. What's the outcome? Well, it's not too bad, really, is it? It's just a bit inconvenient, and we whinge about it a bit, and we might look a bit silly not being able to open the door. In aviation, so that's a human factors problem, but in aviation, the outcome of our small design problems can be much worse. So if in an air traffic control system there is a button that you can push to cancel an emergency, and you push the wrong button, and it cancels the emergency in a wrong part of the airspace you're controlling, it's almost the same level of error if the button is designed wrongly, but the outcome could be much worse. It could mean that two planes collide into each other, or some sort of emergency situation doesn't get resolved. And that's just because of the nature of aviation. The pressure tends to be much higher, so we have to consider these things. So that's, in a nutshell, what human factors is going to be about. And we're going to cover lots of different areas. We're not just going to look at human physiology. In fact, we'll spend relatively little time talking about, if you like, the physical side of the body. We're talking more about the mental gymnastics that we do, how we process information, how we think, we make decisions, we make judgments, we solve problems. It's all about the cognitive human factors, how we interact with each other as human beings, and how we work as teams, how we build cultures of safety and organizational cultures, and how we work as organizations. So we're going to cover quite a bit of ground over the next 12 weeks, and it's going to be relatively quick-paced. So we're going to be shifting between topics an awful lot, but hopefully it's enjoyable too. Most people start this unit going, oh, I expected it to be one thing, and by the end of it, they come out of it going, actually, that was much more interesting than I was expecting. It covered areas that I'd not really thought about from angles that I'd not thought about too. And one of the things I'm really keen on is that you can apply this to your work, whatever you're doing. And I actually think you'll be able to apply it to your studies right now too, and to whatever sort of things you're doing in sport or part-time jobs outside, and it will take you into the future. It'll be a really good skill set for you to have as you go through your careers. So I won't add too many more details about what the course is going to be just yet, because that's spoiling the fun for the next 12 weeks. But I will open up module by module, week by week. The way this unit will run this year is slightly different. Yeah, we're still finding our feet in a post-COVID or a COVID normal world. We are not entirely on campus this year, so the majority of the unit will be delivered online. So me sat here in my home talking to you. So you may notice that the background changes, and I'm going to be completely honest with you. I'm recycling the videos that I used last year, that I recorded last year, which was in the old apartment that I used to live in. So it looks a bit weird. Don't panic. So every week there will be a set of video lectures which will launch on a Monday, and I would like you to watch those video lectures. They're all broken down into little segments, so they're easier to watch for you. They're on YouTube, so you can watch them on your phone as well. Engage with that material, watch it before Wednesday, because on Wednesday we have an hour's session booked together at 9 till 10 in the morning on Collaborate Ultra. So that is going to be what we call live face-to-face time. So I will be in real time having a conversation with you, and it's not a lecture. I will, before that, set a couple of question points for you. I might even give you a problem to solve or some material to read over, specifically for that tutorial. I'm calling it a tutorial workshop. A tutorial workshop on the Wednesday morning. And what I expect that to be is a chance for you just to think through. It'll be on the theme of whatever we're covering that week, but it will sort of force you to think back to the video material, the video lectures, and try and use them to think through this problem. Now, I'd like you to come along to those workshops, and I'll ask you to think about things from a different perspective. We'll have a conversation, broaden out the topic that we're talking about, and try and apply it to your world and to the aviation world. So there'll be a chance for Q&A, questions and answers, on anything that's happening with the course. When we come to assignments as well, that we'll cover those in that hour. But also, very specifically, I'm going to ask you to try and think a bit more broadly and come back to me with your thoughts on a particular question that relates to the material that week. So it is a chance for you to engage with me, and please, I would encourage you to do that. I don't expect you necessarily to have your camera on. I realize that can be tricky. You might be trying to squeeze in your work whilst you're at work somewhere else as well. or you might just be in a place where it's not really great to have your camera on. So that's okay. If you can, I would really encourage you to switch your camera on. It just helps the connection a little bit. It's a bit tricky for me talking to a blank screen. I can do that, that's fine. But if there are a couple of faces, genuinely helps. If you can't, I understand. But what I'd really like you to do is to participate and engage. So there are no stupid questions, genuinely. Although somebody always tests me on that. But in the chat window, ask questions. I would prefer it. Chat window's fine. Text questions are fine. I would really prefer it if we can use the normal protocol for these sessions. And if you want to chime in, use the little stick your hand up feature in the Collaborate Ultra room and ask me a question by voice. It's much easier rather than sitting there on your keyboard typing out questions, just for me to come and we talk and you quickly ask me a question by voice. So if you can turn your microphone on, that's really good. And we'll get some actual participation going. The reason why I'm so keen on that is I don't want to make those Wednesday sessions just another chance for me to video talk to you, because that's not really the point. When people come and they start asking questions, it's like, I don't really understand in the video what you meant by that, and how does that apply to this? And honestly, I don't really understand why that's relevant to aviation. Ask me those questions and we will have a conversation about it and I can answer them, and it means that you get a better education. It means that you get a better understanding of the topic. So the interactivity is actually good for all of us. I understand some of you might be a bit shyer to come on the mic or to turn your video on. So the chat window's okay. But if you can be brave and actually speak to me by voice, I think it helps. And it feels a little bit more like we're in the classroom. Okay. As for that, we'll plod through the materials as we go. Assessment-wise, there are a few different forms of assessment. So each week there will be a very brief quiz. Okay, for 10 of the weeks, actually. 2 of the weeks we won't. And I'll let you know when those weeks are going to be. The first week we will. Second week we will. I think the last 2 weeks, because they're nicely revision, but one of the weeks, I'll let you know. There we go. So there are 10 quizzes, and as a total of those 10 quizzes, they're worth 10% of your overall grade. So they're not much each, and they're only a few questions each. But they just encourage you to, if I'm honest, engage with the material, look back and refresh yourself to answer those multiple choice questions. They're not too taxing, but they do require you to have watched the video material. So it's my little sneaky way of trying to make sure that you do watch the video material. And it's worth a little bit for you too. So it takes the edge off the total marks. There is a 25% essay question for the first assignment, and that's due at the end of week 5, so just before we go to the mid-break. Now, if you look through, it's already posted. Don't worry if the question looks quite big at the moment. It's on a topic which is becoming very interesting in my world. I'm interested in the general world of aviation, called single pilot operations. And I'll talk a little bit more about this when I introduce the subject, but you can appreciate over the years, airliners used to be flying by 4 or 5 people on the flight deck, and we've gradually reduced that, and we'll talk about why. Whereas now, most airliners are flying by 2 pilots on the flight deck. In the very near future, it is highly likely that the next step within your careers, in fact, pretty soon, we're going to move to just single pilot flight deck operations as normal. Now, removing a person from the flight deck has wide-reaching implications, not just on the flight deck, but across the entire of the aviation system, from air traffic control to the airline network operations center for training, to the cabin, to the ground operations. Lots and lots of things change, and we're going to look at that broad topic and then pick off something very specific, just to as the context for your assignment work, so it means something that's actually meaningful. The first part is broad. It's trying to understand the general topic, and you'll notice it's only an 800-word assignment. I'll talk about this a little bit more, but I don't tend to set big wordy assignments. This is an exercise in what I will call dense writing. So I do expect you to go out there and get references and go and do some research on Google Scholar, and understand what's going on with this world. It's not an opinion piece. It's a little bit of opinion, but mostly it's based on you collecting the evidence and the facts from the world around you. So doing a bit of research and then writing very concisely. So I expect you to go and do, they've got 5 weeks to do this. I expect you to go and do a lot of reading, but boil it all down into not much text. Now what that means is you've really got to start working straight away, because you'll write more than you need and then you'll edit it down. It's about quality, not quantity, and that's a message for this course, and it's actually one of the skills you really need to learn going out into the workplace. Your employer, if they send you off to solve a problem, is not going to be very pleased if necessarily, sometimes it's appropriate, but they're not going to be pleased necessarily if you come back with a 5,000 word essay on the subject and plonk it on their desk. Usually what they need is a very well written, concise briefing of the problem. All right, sometimes that's not the case. So if you're working for the Air Transport Safety Bureau and you're producing a very, very detailed report on a crash, for instance, then detail is the essence, and it might be a huge document. But most of the time in the operational world, you need to learn to make your writing very concise. And that doesn't mean not writing very much and not researching very much. That means just putting in what you think is really important, and every word counts, and that's a skill in itself. So we're going to go through that. I'll talk more about the first essay in a dedicated video, probably talk about it in the workshop as well. So for now, I know this intro is getting a little bit long. I'm just going to finish off my breakfast, gorgeous as that is, and I will just ask you to watch for the material, the videos coming live in Module 1, which is all about safety culture. This thing we call safety culture. It's a relatively gentle introduction to one aspect of the world of human factors. And then, that's the really important thing I actually need to touch on. In weeks, there is a difference in weeks 2 and in week 6. So in weeks 2 and 6 of the course, and I'll make this very clear in the syllabus and I'll post lots of announcements, we do have a chance to meet face to face. Because of the COVID restrictions and the way this is all working, we're limited to only a few times when we can actually use a lecture theatre, and in limited numbers. So there is a window. We're going to repeat the session on a Wednesday, and for the life of me I can't remember what times those sessions are, but you will have received your timetable and I'll remind you at the end of the week. You can book in to come and see me face to face in a 1 hour workshop. It'll be like the general weekly workshop, but it'll be face to face on campus, and the room it's one of the EM lecture theatres as well, and I'll fill you in on that. So if you are uncomfortable about being face-to-face in a lecture theatre in this situation, then it's okay. Attendance won't be mandatory as such. I would highly, highly, highly encourage you to be there. We're taking all the COVID safety steps. There'll be social distancing in the room, and we've limited the numbers of people in the room so that you can do that. So I would really like you to be there, if only just so I can get to know who you are and we can have a conversation and a bit of a laugh together as well, and set the culture, which you'll be learning about this week, for this unit. It's not much fun sitting at home, so I want you to sort of, it's an ice-breaking session a little bit, but also maybe we can get to know each other so that when you are online, it feels less like an alien environment. And we'll also do some important exercise to try and contextualize human factors as well. So next week, not this week, not the first week, but the second week, is on the Wednesday an opportunity for a face-to-face session on campus, and I would love it if as many as you can come along to that session. It will be recorded, but if you can be there, that would be great. Okay, so I'm going to shut up now. I'm going to go and find the cat, see where he is, finish my breakfast, and open up those materials. So watch the videos and stay tuned to Canvas, because very soon I will post the workshop materials or the questions for what I expect you to be having to think about for the Wednesday live session. All right, take care, and I'll speak to you very soon.